day 1048 of this Trump administration. And tonight, as expected, the House Intelligence Committee has indeed voted to move the impeachment case along to its next step. It was a straight up party line vote, 13-9. And with it comes a rather withering 300-page report that methodically accuses the president of the United States of wrongdoing in dealings with Ukraine. Now our attention becomes focused on the House Judiciary Committee, the one chaired by Jerry Nadler, Democrat of New York, which is holding its first impeachment hearing mere hours from now at 10 a.m. Judiciary will use the report to draft articles of impeachment. Details of the Intel Committee's findings were released publicly today. The report is based on the 10-week investigation triggered by that whistleblower complaint, let's not forget, that was concerning Trump's July 25th phone call with the then new president of Ukraine. Laid out in rather plain and direct wording, the impeachment investigators found that Donald Trump, and we quote here, personally and acting through agents within and outside of the U.S. government, solicited the interference of a foreign government, Ukraine, to benefit his reelection and to harm the election prospects of a political rival. They go on. The president placed his own personal and political interests above the national interests of the United States, sought to undermine the integrity of the U.S. presidential election process, and endangered U.S. national security. Investigators say the vice president, secretary of state, the acting chief of staff, secretary of energy, and other senior officials, quote, were either knowledgeable of or active participants in an effort to extract from a foreign nation the personal political benefits sought by the president. The report accuses the president of, quote, an unprecedented campaign of obstruction, adding, the evidence of the president's misconduct is overwhelming, and so too is the evidence of his obstruction of Congress. Today, Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff offered his assessment.
This is not about Ukraine. This is about our democracy. This is about our national security. And if we don't care about this, we can darn well be assured the president will be back at it doing this all over again.
This report's biggest revelation, phone records obtained by House Democrats. We didn't know about those before. They list a flurry of calls involving Giuliani, his indicted business associate Lev Parnas, and Devin Nunes, the top Republican on the Intel Committee, who clashed, as you'll recall, repeatedly with the Democrats during last month's public hearings. The calls include several made on April 24th, same day as the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, was recalled. Giuliani called the White House 7 different times and had nearly 9 minutes worth of conversation with a conspicuously unidentified phone number. That same day, someone from the Office of Management and Budget called Rudy 3 times, the last call resulting in a nearly 15-minute conversation. The report also reveals multiple phone calls between Devin Nunes and Lev Parnas. On April 12th, there were 4 phone calls between the two, including one that lasted nearly 9 minutes. Nunes himself was asked about all that tonight on Fox News.
Maybe they have the recordings of my phone calls with Rudy Giuliani. They're welcome to play them because everything I spoke with Rudy Giuliani about is nothing that I wouldn't care if the American people found out.
Did you ever talk to this guy, Les Parnas, or whoever his name is?
You know, it's possible, but I haven't gone through all my phone records. I don't really recall that name. You know, I remember the name now because he's been indicted. I'll go back and check all my records, but it seems very unlikely that I would be taking calls from random people.
Just a short time ago on this network, Intel Committee Chairman Schiff discussed the calls revealed in this report.
These phone records show just the kind of interaction between these different players in the midst of this scheme. We're trying to identify the full scope of those who were complicit in what the president was doing. And these records give a window of insight into exactly that.
As we were watching Devin Nunes in the hearings, he knew that you had obtained phone records that included him and that those phone records would inevitably be made public by your report.
Well, he certainly had possession of the records. Now, how much he looked into them, how much he discussed what they showed with his staff, I really can't say. You would have to ask him.
The Democrats' impeachment report here also notes that Mr. Parnas appears to be in communication with Congress, and thus anyone who dealt with Parnas could be in trouble. Quote, Mr. Parnas has begun rolling production of certain records in his possession, custody, or control in response to the subpoena, which the committees are evaluating. There's also this about Trump's pressure campaign to have Ukraine to make a specific statement regarding investigations into the Bidens. The report includes an excerpt of a draft statement sent from Ukrainian officials to then Special Envoy Kurt Volker August 12th. The next day, Volker sent a revised version of the draft to EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland, which included an added promise to investigate Burisma and the 2016 U.S. elections. The statement was never delivered publicly. This is all unfolding during the president's London visit for this week's NATO summit meeting. Tonight, Trump and other leaders joined the Queen at a reception at Buckingham Palace. But earlier in the day and in traditional form, the president had plenty to say about what was going on back home.
I think it's very unpatriotic of the Democrats to put on a performance where they do that. I do. I think it's a bad thing for our country. Impeachment wasn't supposed to be used that way. All you have to do is read the transcripts. You'll see there was absolutely nothing done wrong. They had legal scholars looking at the transcripts the other day, and they say these are absolutely perfect. Trump is right when he uses the word. Those concepts, those calls that we made, two of them were absolutely perfect calls.
There's some talk among lawmakers of censoring you instead of impeachment. What do you think about that?
Unacceptable. I did nothing wrong.
Why won't you permit the Secretary of State or the acting White House Chief of Staff to testify?
Well, I would. I'd like them to testify, but these are very unfair hearings. I want them to testify, but I want them to testify in the Senate where they'll get a fair trial.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.